your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to enforce the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Sorry, I'm giving the communication. Honourable members, I wish to make the following communication. Yeah. Honourable members and advise. No, don't do that. Don't do that. No. Just remain standing where you are. You. I wish to give this message of Mr. Kennedy Nyabuti Ogeto for appointment as the Solicitor General in exercise of powers vested in him under Section 9, Subsection 1 of the Office of the Attorney General Act 2012. Honourable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act provides that the relevant committee of the House will consider the suitability or otherwise of the nominee and table its report for consideration by the House within 14 days from the date the notification of nomination is conveyed to the House. Further, the Act requires that the public be given 7 days notification to submit their views regarding the suitability or otherwise of the nominee proposed for appointment, so as to an office requiring parliamentary approval. In this regard, and in accordance with the provisions of Article 259, Clause 5, Paragraph A of the Constitution, as read together with Section 5 of the said Act, the 7 days notification of the public shall start running on the day following the day when the notice is published in the local dailies. Honourable members, it is advisable that the relevant committee expeditiously proceeds to notify the nominee and the public, commence the approval hearing after the 7-day notification period, and table a report on or before Wednesday, March 7th, 2018, to enable the House to consider the matter within the statutory timelines. This message, together with the curriculum vitae of the nominee, therefore stands committed to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs for consideration. I thank you, honourable members.
Order number 4, petitions.
Honourable members who are standing, you could either take your seat or remain upstanding so that we can transact the business that is at hand. Honourable members, pursuant to standing order number 255, subsection 2, paragraph B, I wish to convey, honourable members, if you are coming to the House, if you are coming into the chamber, that member who appears to be, don't do that, don't do that, that's not good enough. I wish to convey to the House a petition signed by 3 citizens, namely Edward Nyakenga, Jacqueline Kageha, and Zakaria Momanyi, on behalf of Republican Liberty Party. The petitioners are praying that, in accordance with Article 256, Clause 1 of the Constitution, an amendment of the Constitution through parliamentary initiative, the National Assembly introduces a bill to amend the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. Honourable members, the petitioner is praying that the National Assembly amends Article 231, Clause 4 of the Constitution, which provides the following, I quote, "Notes and coins issued by the Central Bank of Kenya may bear images that depict or symbolize Kenya or an aspect of Kenya, but shall not bear the portrait of any individual," close the quotes. The petitioner contends that the manner in which Article 231, Clause 4 is framed is ambiguous. The petitioners cite a number of jurisdictions whose currencies have portraits of their founding leaders and individuals as an honor for their outstanding contribution to their countries. Honourable members, the petitioners affirm that the portrait of the first president of the Republic of Kenya meets the exclusive standard to depict or symbolize Kenya or any aspect of our country. Further, they propose that the reverse side of the currency should bear the image of the National Parliament and the coat of arms, as the two images exhaustively depict the country's key features. Honourable members, the petitioners are therefore praying that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, initiate the process of amending Article 231 of the Constitution by deleting Clause 4 and substituting, therefore, with the following text: "Notes and coins issued by the Central Bank of Kenya may bear the portrait of the first president of the Republic of Kenya, while the back of the notes shall bear the image of the Parliament and the coat of arms," close the quotes. You may wish to know that there was a similar petition to this House in the last Parliament, but whose consideration by the relevant committee was not concluded by the end of the term of the House. This petition therefore now stands committed to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning for consideration. The committee is at liberty to introduce a bill proposing to amend the Constitution as framed by the petitioners or make recommendations as they deem appropriate. I thank you. Proceed. You can proceed. I just noticed that.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the majority party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, February 22nd, 2018, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the financial year that ended 30th June 2016, the Kenya Veterinary Board and Maseno University.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Leader of the majority party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That further to the notice of motion I gave yesterday during the morning sitting, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That pursuant to Article 127, subsection 2 of the Constitution, the National Assembly approves the appointment of the Honorable Aisha Juma, MP, and Senator George Khaniri, MP, as members to the Parliamentary Service Commission under subsection C, Roman 2 of the said article.
Well, honourable members, I just wish to draw your attention to the existence of a supplementary order paper. I hope every member has a copy of it. And this has been necessitated by the inclusion of those two names that have notice of motion of which has been given by the leader of the majority party. So there is a supplementary order paper. I hope every member has that, not the original order paper. Next.
Order number 7, statements.
Leader of majority.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42, subsection 2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee. The committee met on Tuesday this week at the rise of the House. Honorable Speaker, departmental committees are expected to table their reports on the vetting of the various nominees to the office of the principal secretaries, ambassadors, and high commissioners by Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, to enable the House to debate and conclude on the reports by Wednesday, February 2018. Honorable Speaker, it is also anticipated that the Budget and Appropriation Committee will have concluded deliberations on the budget policy statement with various stakeholders this week and table its report for consideration and adoption by Tuesday, February 27, 2018. On Tuesday next week, Mr. Speaker, we shall have the first reading of the Land Value Index Laws Amendment Bill 2018 and the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2018. That is dealing with the matter of the gender, two-third gender law. So it's back again in the chair of Parliament. Honorable Speaker, members should note that this constitutional amendment is the one revisiting the issue of the two-thirds gender principle and with regard to Parliament, so that all should familiarize themselves with the content of that bill, Mr. Speaker, and they can pick a copy from the table office. We will also continue with the second reading of the Kenya Roads Bill, should we not conclude it today. Honorable Speaker, I call upon all chairs to the departmental committees to expedite consideration of the bills read a first time and table the reports to enable the House to consider the bills for second reading. Honorable Speaker, in the same week, we shall consider the reports of the meetings of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, as well as the report of the meetings of the ACP EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly. And finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, February 27th at the rise of the House to consider the business for the coming week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House.
And before we move to the next order, it's just going to remind ourselves that, as I stated yesterday, the leader of the majority party does that on behalf of the House Business Committee. And again, he has given notice of motion for the appointment or nomination of 2 additional members to the Parliamentary Service Commission, again on behalf of the House Business Committee. Honorable Eseli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on a point of order to seek for your guidance and direction as to how we can sort out some problem, in the sense that this happened in the last Parliament. A bill was introduced by the Honorable Boni Halwale, Senator Halwale, in the Senate to amend the Political Parties Act. The Senate passed it, but when it got to this House, it lacked a seconder, so the bill flopped. And therefore, as by our rules and regulations, a mediation committee was set up to mediate that particular bill. In the intervening period, the Honorable Chris Wamalwa had also introduced a bill to amend the Political Parties Act in the National Assembly, a bill which was then passed by the National Assembly and was supposed to be transmitted to the Senate. However, Mr. Speaker, going through the records, I realized that the mediation committee, as they were meeting, called the Honorable Chris Wamalwa to their meeting. But the Honorable Chris Wamalwa was very clear to them that his bill, he felt, was different and should actually proceed to the Senate for concurrence of table office, the minutes of the mediation committee meetings, and the Hansard reports, how the bills progressed through the 2 houses. But I noticed that the Honorable Chris Wamalwa's bill was never introduced in the Senate. So I would like your guidance and direction as to how we can act from there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, with regard to if the bill by the former senator for Kakamega was mediated upon and some consensus arrived at, then if, as you say, it was assented to, that is law. But the bill by the Honorable Chris Wamalwa must have died the natural death that happens with the end of the life of each House of Parliament. And therefore, the only available avenue would be republication. If the Honorable Chris Wamalwa is still desirous of pursuing his legislative intentions. I don't know if the Honorable Wamalwa is still intense. But of course, if he may have given up hope, perhaps what he wanted to address might have already been addressed by the last general election. But should he be desirous of pursuing it, or any other member may be desirous of pursuing whatever was contained in it, can still be republished. Just like we've seen several bills that had been moved by the leader of the majority party, passed by this House, but never passed or even considered by the Senate, I want to be republished afresh. So I think this bill, if there's intention to still revisit it, the only avenue available would be republication, either in the same form or in a different form. So either the Honorable Dr. Seli Simiyu takes it up, because it looks like the member for Kiminini, looking at his face, appears to be content with its demise. Honorable Amalwa, you don't appear to be anxious as you usually are about matters such as this, where you may be the subject. Yes, let's hear Honorable Amalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank Honorable Dr. Selo for bringing up that matter. Indeed, my bill was to look at the political parties' funding. As the way it was formulated, you know, it was based particularly on the presidential votes. But we wanted to provide an alternative whereby if you don't use the presidential votes, you can as well use the number of seats that a political party has won, maybe in terms of Senate, the National Assembly, or even the County Assembly. Political parties funding, Mr. Speaker, is very critical as far as the democracy of this country is concerned, so that we don't get a few individuals to own the political parties. So it is something which is key, and obviously we have an interest of reviving it. I don't have to revive it, but any other member, maybe who asked for, like maybe Honorable Seli, can still pursue so that we can expedite and resolve some of the problems which are likely to emerge very soon when it comes to sharing of the political parties fund. I thank you.
I thought the Honorable Amalwa was also going to refer the House to the recent decision by the courts regarding that issue of funding to political parties. There has been a recent decision on that matter. So that maybe whatever it is that you will input in the new bill, if at all, takes into account what it is that the courts said in that judgment. I think it will be good to make reference to what it is that the court said. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, appointment of members to the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Leader of the majority party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Article 127, subsection 2 of the Constitution, the National Assembly approves the appointment of the following members of the National Assembly and Senate to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Under subsection C, Roman 1, the Honorable Naomi Shaban, MP, the Honorable Aden Kainan, MP, the Honorable Senator Honorable Beth Mugo, MP, Senator Honorable Aaron Cheriot, MP, and under section C, Roman 2, the Honorable Ben Momanyi, MP, the Honorable Aisha Juma, MP, and the Honorable Senator George Khaniri, MP. Mr. Speaker, you need to deal with the member for Kisumu East. Yeah. You know, he is an independent and he has defied his party and he has won his seat. That excitement should have ended on the 9th of August. I'll bring it to the House. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Service Commission is one of the independent commissions in Kenya established under Article 127 of the Constitution of Kenya to deal with the smooth functioning of the Houses of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, and I want you to allow me to spend a few minutes to remind members of the history of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Speaker, in 1999, Parliament was a department of the Office of the President in the executive. Staff used to be employed, deployed, transferred, and fired at the whims of the executive. Members used to make long queues, Mr. Speaker, at the cash office every end of the month to be paid their modest salaries at the cash office that was situated at the current Deputy Speaker's office, which was later moved to the office opposite the Speaker's office. Kenya entering Parliament, and then they go and queue at that office. This is the history of the PSC. There were no mortgages, Mr. Speaker. There were no car loans or other facilities currently avail to members of parliament. But that did not kill, Mr. Speaker, the legislative and the oversight agility of parliament. Still, those members, despite not having car loan, despite not having mortgage, with a mega salary that was brought through by the Land Rover from the central bank to the cash office, with no CDF, still they maintained and they performed their legislative and oversight agility of parliament. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, you see today, many of the members who served in those parliaments today are living in abject poverty. And I think the Parliamentary Service Commission needs to look at them. Mr. Speaker, in 1999, thanks to one member for Lego Usonga, the Honorable Peter Olowaringo, with my deputy, the Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi. Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi, Mr. Speaker, supported the initiative of Olowaringo, and the following morning he was sacked as an assistant minister. So Jimmy Angwenyi has a history for being sacked, not because he didn't perform, but because he supported the parliamentary service, the amendment to the constitution. So in 1999, Honorable Oringo decided to bring a legislative in order to emasculate parliament from the executive by a way of a constitutional amendment number 3 of 1999, where he entrenched the Parliamentary Service Commission then in the constitution. Speaker, this strengthened parliament independence and enhanced oversight, representation, and law-making capacity. It's worth noting that the Honorable Olowaringo contributed to the most initial reforms during his tenure as a member of parliament and a member of then Parliamentary Service Commission. So Olowaringo, Mr. Speaker, will be remembered. But Olowaringo also will be remembered for when we nominated him in the 10th Parliament to the Sahara Serem Commission. He decided to kill the same baby that he became very old, and I think he forgot the history of PSC. And, and he decided to strangle that baby that he is proud of. Mr. Speaker, we had 4 commissions since 2000, which have done, in my opinion, a tremendous job. And I want to inform my colleagues on the other side, matters of administration have no party lines, Mr. Speaker. Matter of PSC is not about which party you belong to. It's about the welfare of members and the welfare of parliament in performing its duty of representing, oversighting, and legislating. So, Mr. Speaker, when I see my colleagues haggling over the Commission's positions along party lines, I wonder whether they think their nominees will go into the Commission to foster party interest or to cater for the welfare of the members to enable them serve effectively. Speaker, as we appoint these commissioners, I wish to inform them, and these are the nominees, their in tray is full. I am sure the new members are aware of the Parliamentary Service Commission bill, which has been in this House since the 11th Parliament. And I urge them to expedite the consideration of that bill in the House within the period of the 12th Parliament. Speaker, Parliament is the only commission, and I want to repeat it, is the only commission that has never aligned its administrative role with the Constitution of Kenya 2018, 8 years down the line. Judicial Service Commission, they have their own act. The Public Service Commission have their own act. The Teacher Service Commission, name them. It is only PSC, Parliamentary Service Commission, which doesn't have how the administration of that commission is run. So I think the Parliamentary Service Commission bill will be introduced to the House soon, and I think we need, through the commissioners, that will be approved by this House, will deal with that matter. Mr. Speaker, it is very shameful that Parliament spends time oversighting other organs and making laws for other commissions, but when it comes to its own law, we either seem not to be interested or we are taken round by the parliamentary mandarins. Speaker, just like the way we have the treasury mandarins, we have mandarins in parliament who really frustrated the introduction of that bill in last parliament until it died somewhere, until they used the ethnic caucus, they used the political leaders. I remember, Mr. Speaker, one afternoon at the height of the election, one of the leaders in one of the biggest parties in Kenya called me and told me, please, just shelve that bill until after the elections. And I asked him why. He says it's going to give us problems in some regions. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is important to all of us. We want to know the tenure of officers in this parliament. We want to know how the officers are run. We want to know what is the right of a member of parliament and the right of a staff. Speaker, I urge members, if approved, these members, if they are approved, to work immediately and address all the challenges currently are pending before it. Speaker, one of the cardinal functions of PAC is to look into the welfare of members. Speaker, how do you define welfare? Transport is welfare. Car grant is welfare. Security is welfare. But it doesn't define whether security is from the National Police Service. Speaker, housing is a welfare. Speaker, one of the things I think these commissions, if they are approved, is why should the mortgage of the legislature be pegged to 5 years? Why? Speaker, Parliament can have a program that even after 5 years out of Parliament, you can still pay your mortgage. Speaker, ministers, PSs are entitled to mortgage. When they are sacked, their houses are not sold. They are not told to pay today. But today, if any one of us lose an election, in a by-election, the next day Parliament Service Commission will come and sold your property. Speaker, even in the private sector and in government, there is a procedure in which you negotiate for mortgage. It's not 5 years. I can pay my mortgage, I can take 50 million and pay my mortgage over 7 years. Why should it be pegged to the 5 years? If the member can pay, if the member can show, his bank can show. So, Mr. Speaker, the mortgage facility must be relooked at. That you must pay within 5 years. Speaker, is not cast in stone. And there are very good people in this house. Honorable Sholei, she's not here. Honorable Sholei, when she was in the judiciary, they had a mortgage package for the judiciary. She did a presentation to us last weekend when we were in the Liaison Committee meeting. And I'm sure we can pick from, Honorable Sholei can share with the Parliamentary Service Commission how mortgage can be managed in this house, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, so these members, if you are approved, you have a lot of work to do. Administrative matters including staff recruitment, deployment, promotions, Mr. Speaker, have been pending for the last 1.5 years. And Mr. Speaker, we must stop the culture that when you become a commissioner of the PAC, it's a place to bring your next of kin and your tribesmen to come and work in Parliament. That will not accept it. Speaker, in fact, we need to do an audit of the staff of Parliament in terms of constituencies and counties. We must do it. Yeah, Mr. Speaker. So that we know whether Parliament that stands for equity is practicing equity itself. So, Mr. Speaker, as our leader, as our chair of PAC, you must protect, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is not going to be business as usual. This PAC must change. It's not going to be a PAC where if you come from a county, 10% of the staff working in Parliament are from your county and you are from your clan and from your tribe. No. You are holding that position on our behalf. We either share the cake on a competitive way, or, Mr. Speaker, let us allow Parliament to employ the best of the best. Mr. Speaker, in our legal department, we have the best men from the State Law Office. In our budget office, we have the best men and women from the National Treasury. In the legislation, we have. But, Mr. Speaker, we don't want Parliament and the National Assembly to be the dumping ground for mediocre staff, just because they are related to certain commissioners. That we are not going to agree. And, Mr. Speaker, this time we mean business. You should also take, Mr. Speaker, they should take their mandate honestly and in touch with the members. They must be in touch with the members. You have been approved by this House, so you must know our interests from morning to evening. You must not stay in your office in Continental, in County Hall. You must come to where we're having tea and confirm whether that tea, in quotes, is the tea of Matanga, according to Honorable Junet. And because Honorable Junet, Mr. Speaker, is an expert on Matangas. You know, so it is a business. If you are the chair of welfare, you go to the gym and check whether those machines are working. Yeah. So it is not that we appoint you a chair or a member of the commission, and then the last day we see you is the beginning of another parliament when you want us to renew your contract. So, Speaker, we want our vote. We want value for our votes. Today we are doing voting. We want value for these votes. Yes, if you don't want to work for us, then we will not give you votes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some of the commission's role is to provide service and facilities to ensure the efficient and effective running of Parliament. If all the facilities and services in this Parliament are up to the task, they are good, then the efficiency and the effectiveness in terms of running of Parliament will be seen. Mr. Speaker, the other mandate of the role of the commissioners is to constituting officers in Parliament, in parliamentary service. We only deal with the Senate when it comes to the division of revenue bill and the county allocation of bill. The budget of PSC is this House. Now, how do we pass 27 billion, Mr. Speaker? And Mr. Speaker, I think I have said a lot. I want to leave the remaining for my colleague, the leader of minority, to second. I beg to move and ask Honorable Bandi. And Honorable Bandi, the way I have spoken, you must put these 4 great men and women we are nominating, and they're up to the task. That is not business as usual. I beg to move and ask Honorable Bandi to second.
Honorable John Bandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the motion before us is to make appointment today, actually, in form of voting, to have our members, those members who are going to form the Parliamentary Service Commission and who are going to take care of the interests of members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, this is a very unique commission. It's unique in the sense that it's probably the only commission that the provisions of, I think it's Article 259 or 260, does not really affect directly in terms of the tenure that a member of this commission, especially those who are appointed pursuant to Article 127(2) of the Constitution, that can serve in this commission for more than 6 years. But Mr. Speaker, I was pointing out that because I had a number of my colleagues asking why some members who have been in this commission for, say, 5 years or more are still being included in this commission, yet commissions are supposed to serve for maximum of 6 years. But Mr. Speaker, allow me to say the following. Honorable Angwenya, I think, was not attentive, Mr. Speaker. I've just said that some honorable members were wondering why some members are being reappointed in this commission and they have served more than 6 years. But I was saying this commission is unique in terms of Article 127(2) of the Constitution, because the chair of this commission is permanently the Speaker. Whether the Speaker likes it or not, he has to chair this commission. And the Speaker may be the Speaker for even 20 years. And so he would still be the commission, plus honorable members of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate. Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of Majority rightly put it, this commission's responsibility is to look at the members' welfare in terms of provision of services to the members. And Mr. Speaker, today we are appointing men and women whom we believe we have confidence in to go and sit in this commission together with the 2 other members, 3 others, including the Speaker, so that the members' welfare is looked into, members are provided with facilitation services. And therefore, I think the people of Kenya needs to also listen to this carefully, that this commission's responsibility is to look at the welfare of honorable members of parliament, the facilities they use, the services they need in order to discharge their duties and responsibilities. And therefore, if any commissioner, and that includes the speaker, magistrate, because that is the work for which they are put there. Therefore, when the Speaker of the National Assembly, together with his team, will also be defending the interests of members, it should be understood in that context. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to say that in terms of agreeing on the membership of this commission, I think both the leadership of majority and minority are now, as NASA coalition, I want to just confirm that we have confidence in these three members. We have Wiper representatives in the name of Ben Momanyi. We have, as NASA coalition, we carry him along as a member of NASA who is nominated in this commission. ODM had 2 slots, Mr. Speaker, and we requested you to give us more time to agree on our 2 names. And Mr. Speaker, I want to just report that we did held a meeting this morning and agreed that ODM will propose and nominate Aisha Jumwa Katana as a representative, who is a lady, and then we would donate, in the spirit of the coalition, 1 slot, which was an entitlement of ODM, we have nominated to Amani National Congress. And therefore, we have Senator George Aniri coming from the Senate as a member of the NASA coalition, but a member of ANC. So that entitlement, I want to just talk to my colleagues in ODM who probably are not aware of this discussion, that as the bigger brother in terms of numbers, and because of our magnanimity, we have decided that that 1 slot, which was our entitlement, we give one Honorable George Aniri, who is actually the most experienced member of parliament in the Republic of Kenya. I think he's the longest serving member of parliament. He is serving the 6th term as a member of parliament. He served 4 terms in the National Assembly. He's serving 2 terms now at the Senate. I think we cannot get a better representative than that honorable member. Mr. Speaker, the leader of majority has spoken a lot. By the way, I just wanted also to mention that even the proposal that came through the leader of minority, through my office, where we were trying to have Ben Momanyi out, we were still having a Wiper member. So it is not that we didn't want a Wiper party to be represented, but it was only the question of who from Wiper was to come in. But now it is Ben Momanyi. We are agreeable to it. We live with it as NASA coalition. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said by my friend Honorable Duale, the leader of majority. And I wanted also to talk about it. Mr. Speaker, it is also not correct to say that the previous commission did not do much for this parliament. Those of us who have followed the activities, the deliberations, the discussions since the introduction to this country of Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Because Salaries and Remuneration Commission is a new commission, a commission that the first parliament that was affected by their decision is the 11th parliament. And we know the discussions that took place between the commission and that other commission. The commission here, I mean the Parliamentary Service Commission. And therefore, I know that a lot of decisions that were made by SRC really affected our service delivery. And many of us have been very unhappy. But at the same time, the Parliamentary Service Commission has engaged quite well with SRC. So I think as honorable members, we should not condemn the previous commission that they did not do much. But I want to also add that something that surprises me, much as I appreciate, and I know that this country, we need to rein on recurrent expenditure, which includes salaries and other recurrent expenses, and which should cut across the board. But I just want to remind SRC, I see so many people congratulating and praising SRC that they did a good job. The SRC that left. Mr. Speaker, if you ask me, that commission, I don't think, understood its mandate. That commission, in my view, needed to have realized that they were going to look at the salary of the whole public sector. It was not just a question of PR and targeting the parliament, which is in the eyes of the public, because that is exactly what they did. If you look at some of the decisions they made, they were very good. The decisions that they made could have helped this country cut on costs if it was applied across the board. But you cannot take away a car grant of members of parliament, but leave the judiciary with it, leave executive, ministers, cabinet secretaries, permanent secretaries, even directors. In fact, someone was telling me, even chiefs are being given motorbikes with fuel allowance. And you are telling members of parliament that they are the only category of state officers who are not supposed to get car grant and mileage. Much as that makes a lot of sense. But Mr. Speaker, if you apply it selectively, then it loses meaning. And therefore, I want to ask Parliamentary Service Commission, this time engage effectively well with the new SRC which will come, so that this condemnation on members of parliament should stop. You need to explain to the public to understand what we are entitled to, because a lot of things that I read, a lot of money that I get it on paper and I don't get it in my pocket. In fact, sometimes I've been wondering, Mr. Speaker, that if this money that is being indicated that I get, I was actually getting it, I would be better off financially than I am. Mr. Speaker, it appears my time is up, but allow me just to say something on relationship with the staff. Much as I also appreciate that these people are adults, the honorable members here are adults, the staff, we don't employ anybody below 18, so they know what they are doing. But I also think that we need to be careful, to be very careful while engaging, because I think the image of... Yes. Thank you.
Proceed. Just finish your point.
Yes, I was just finishing my point that much as we appreciate that these people are all adults, but we must maintain some healthy distance. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Majority Leader that when you destroy the image of this parliament, all of us will be called MPs, will be called all sorts of names. So, Mr. Speaker, let us try as much as possible, those of us who are known to be maintaining some unhealthy connection or distance with these members, let us just try to make it a bit healthier, slightly healthier. No one will arrest you because you are not committing any crime. These are adults, but remember, these are our staff. They are supposed to serve us in terms of their work, professional work, not in other areas. Other areas, we have options available. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to second.
Honour members. Now, why don't you take your seat? Member Boyata, other members. You know, yesterday I announced that there's going to be the post-election induction seminar, and we will have guests from other parliaments, from other jurisdictions. I think we don't want them to tell us that they shout to their speaker to put a question to a motion that has only been moved and seconded without being proposed. Certainly not within the CPA jurisdictions. So I think just relax. Of course, just relax. There should be, and of course, both the Honorable Duale and Honorable Bandi have explained about the functions, and I think most of you do appreciate. Of course, the Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi, I saw him smile quite widely when he had his name being mentioned, because he was in the House at the time when the motion seeking leave of the House even before you could move, you could propose a bill. First of all, you have to go through a motion, seek leave of the House, that particular motion, on that Wednesday morning, and I'm sure the Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi remembers the sumptuous breakfast that was available on that particular day for members of parliament from one side of the divide. Seeking leave of the House to amend, to introduce a bill to amend section 45B hours, so that the current law does not recognize the existence of the other house. Yet the Constitution recognizes in this Article 127 and several other articles, and more particularly Article 93, on what the definition of parliament is. Parliament consists of the National Assembly and the Senate. Yet, the Honorable Peter Kaluma would want it to be in that order. But well, it is not me, it is the way the Article 9. If there are any provisions in it that the House feels may not be contained in it, in the normal way, we are at liberty to propose amendments. And if you have the numbers, whatever it is you propose will be carried. But I think it's only fair. It is incumbent. The 10th Parliament did not do it. So those who are in the 10th Parliament don't be happy, because the Constitution was promulgated on 27th of August, 2010. So the 10th Parliament did not do it. The 11th, for the 4 years and 4 months that you are in existence, we did do it. I think it's only fair that we should prioritize that bill. I believe the other issues which have been captured are matters that those who serve in the commission have to really address, because they are matters about facilities, and we need to be very clear about facilities and services. The commissioners must really address that issue. And for that reason, remember, we also created a committee not called catering, a committee of this House for services and facilities. So that committee should engage with the commission. So, honourable members, I am not part of the debate. As you know, Article 122 of the Constitution says that I don't even have a vote. So the rest of the business is yours. So I propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Article 127, Clause 2 of the Constitution, the National Assembly approves the appointment of the following members of the National Assembly and the Senate and senators to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Under paragraph A, which is 127(2)C, Roman 1, the Honorable Naomi Shaban, EGH MP. 2, the Honorable Aiden Kainan, CBS MP. 3, Senator the Honorable Beth Mugo, EGH MP. 4, Senator the Honorable Aaron Cheriot, MP. Under paragraph B, which is 127(2)C, Roman 2, the Honorable Ben Mumanyi, MP. 2, the Honorable Aisha Juma, MP. And 3, Senator the Honorable George Haniri, MGH, MP. I notice that the member for Arienda has indicated. Honourable members, let us.
Mr. Speaker,
Honourable Otiende Amolo.
I rise on a point of order,
Yes, what's your point of order?
and I'm guided by your previous directions that a question of constitutionality can be raised at any time. Mr. Speaker, the names that have been presented, the 7 names, I have no problem with them at all. However, as the majority leader said and the minority leader said, these names are presented under Article 127, under Article 248, and under Article 250. Mr. Speaker, specifically under Article 127, the Speaker is the permanent chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Article 248 lists the Parliamentary Service Commission as one of the commissions duly guided by Article 250. But Mr. Speaker, Article 250, Sub-Article 6A is very specific. That unless ex officio, no person can serve in the commission for more than one term. It is a fixed term of 6 years. I have heard the minority leader say that the Parliamentary Service Commission is exempt from the provisions of the Constitution. I am unaware of such a provision, and I would like to be guided. As far as I understand it, Mr. Speaker, 2 of the 7 members appear to have already served. Now, I'm raising this not because I object to them, but for posterity, we have to be very clear. Are we guided by Article 256A or we are not? If we are, then are we not in danger of doing an act that is unconstitutional by amending Article 256A and allowing a member to essentially serve for more than one term? I seek your directions, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable
Will not apply to Article 250 and how they're supposed to be discharged. It's for the same caucus to come back, the same Jubilee parliamentary group and Orange parliamentary group sitting with reasons can write and bring a motion for their removal. So there's that is the leeway of the Parliamentary Service Commission. More fundamentally, when a member of parliament serves for 5 years, that is the end of the 5 years. When he's re-elected, he is serving a fresh new term. It's different from other public and state officers. So, Mr. Speaker, if you look at even the process in how we arrived at these names this afternoon, is totally different from the way Judicial Service Commission, Teacher Service Commission, Public Service Commission, SRC, how they arrive those names to this house. The roadmap is different. It's like day and night. It's not President Uhuru Kenyatta who brought these nominees to this house. Am I right? Did the Speaker read a message? The Speaker didn't read a message from the executive. So I think, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Otiende is good that he has raised it, and I think it's within his right. You have answered. I think we need to move and dispose of this matter, deal with the matter. I'm sure they have issues to deal with. Then we move. Then next time, I think this is a matter that the Legal Affairs Committee, or he can bring a petition. But I think one thing he needs to go home with is that, fine, is as 3 nominees who have been appointed to the Judicial Service Commission. Yesterday, they were being vetted. The president has the powers to appoint. And the same thing, the same question I want to ask you, Honorable Otieno Amolo, and I think these are some of the things, the legal food for thought you need to go home with. What about Judicial Service Commission? The Chief Justice is the Chief Justice and the President of the Supreme Court. He sits in the Judicial Service Commission. The Court of Appeal have similar representation the way we have representation in PSC. The same for the High Court, the same for the magistrates. The only 3 people who come through the presidency, through a selection panel, is the 3 nominees who represent non-lawyers. They represent the public interest in the JSC. So I think we are absolutely different. I think, Mr. Speaker, we need to move. And next time, I'm sure when Honorable Otieno wins his seat in 2022, he might be eligible through the Orange Party to be a member of the PSC.
But just for the information of the House, honorable members, for the information of the House, there are 2 other members of the commission appointed by Parliament who are non-members. And even as we speak, those of you who can recall, those two persons, one female, one male, were nominated, and the formula used was the minority side produced one name, which was female, and she is still a commissioner. The majority side produced one name, which was male. I still believe is male. But the said male resigned to go and contest and successfully became a senator. As now, as we speak, is a member of the Senate in the 12th Parliament. So indeed, actually, the leader of the majority party, you may be failing the House by not also submitting a name to replace that male. And those ones, again, Honorable Otiende, again, this is one issue that needs to be addressed. How long, this constitution does not say, because they are non-members, for them, how many years do they serve? 5 or 6? Again, these are gray areas that members of the Committee of Experts did not provide specifically. Yeah, it is true. So indeed, the real majority is supposed to bring another name. Yes, because the records are there that the minority party submitted one name, and the lady is still a commissioner. She continues to serve. But it's a matter that perhaps will be contested by, I think, the public spirit and lawyers. Like, the other guy who is a very public spirited is not a lawyer, but he seems to enjoy the status of a lawyer in the Kenyan courts today. The member for Ruaraka, you wanted to say one small thing on this. Let's.
I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, the mood of the House is that you put the question, but even as you put the question, just to add my voice, Mr. Speaker, sir, you have ruled on this issue before. I remember several communications from the chair. And you know, law is interesting. That is why this constitution that was done by my friend Otiende Molo and others, they allowed all of us Kenyans to interpret, including courts of law and anybody else who is able to read, and Okiyo Mutata also interprets these things. The only provision which, Mr. Speaker, sir, you have referred to in the past that has not gone in the Hansard today is Article 248, which is the application of this chapter, the Commission, the 15th chapter. And it begins with good words, but the key words there, except to the extent that this Constitution provides otherwise. Extent to which the Constitution applies otherwise. So in the 15 commissions, it's a single term of 6 years and not eligible for reappointment. But 127 provides otherwise, because there is subsection 4, which provides a term of 5 years. A question can be whether we are talking about only the term and not the qualification of eligibility. But the way in which subsection 6 has been worded, the question of a single term is conjoined with the qualification of eligibility. So if, therefore, subsection 4 talks about 5 terms, we just have to live with it, in my view, that it is the extent to which this Constitution provides otherwise. Thank you.
Very well. Well, honourable members, now what? Now, honourable members, as honourable members, usually when we are dealing with commissioners who are to serve in other commissions, you know, I would have found it interesting that you are asking me to put the question. Is it because now these ones are your own? What? Is it the feeling of the, is it the, huh? What? No, honor members, just a minute. You know, honor members, I think some of these terms which the Honorable Otiende Molo and his team put in the new constitution are quite exciting. Now, everybody, diversity, regional balance, and et al. Now, gender, I don't know, age, youth, so many. But for me, honor members, to decide whether we move in one way or the other, because I don't know, here, put the question, we want to debate. Now, there are some, like the member for Endebes who want debate and the member for Kikuyu. Honor members, can I find out what is the mood of the House? And the only method that is available to us is I will put the question that I put the question. Not even for the mover to reply. Because there has been no debate. Honor members, therefore, let me find out whether that is the mood of the House. A former member of this House used to refer to this as, and obviously the member for Sunais, I'm allowed to interchange the languages, Swahili and English. A former member of this House used to say, Kura ya makelele. Now, honor members, I will put the question. Which is that the Speaker do put the question on the motion. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contra opinion say nay? Nay. Obviously, the ayes have it. Unless somebody is claiming for a division. Honor members, there was only one member who rose in his place claiming for a division, the member for Homa Bay Town. So he did not meet the threshold of 30 members. So, honor members, I will put the question. And as we have established, we have done this always. We have established. I'll put the question on each name. All of them? Yes. Honor members, order. Honor members, order members. Remember, I don't have to keep reminding you about the famous words of Speaker Lentho on the 4th of January, 1642. Yeah? That I've no eyes to see, no ears to hear, no tongue to speak, except as directed by this House, whose servant I am. Paraphrased. Yeah? So, if the House directs that I put the questions for all members, Again, of course, you have Honorable Otiende Amolo will tell you Article 122 says the Speaker has no vote. So again, let me find whether that is. Yes, because it is you to decide. Which is, Honorable members, listen. The proposal from the floor is that I put the question with respect to all the members. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? As many as of the counter opinion say nay? Again, honorable members, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. I can resume my seat if there are any members claiming for a division. I see none. So, honorable members, let us dispose of this motion. And I put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Article 127(2), Clause 2 of the Constitution, the National Assembly approves the appointment of the following members of the National Assembly and senators to the Parliamentary Service Commission. A, under paragraph subsection 1, Roman 2, under subsection C, Roman 1. The Honorable Naomi Shaban, EGH MP. The Honorable Aidan Kainan, CBS MP. The Honorable Senator, the Honorable Beth Mugo, EGH MP. Senator, the Honorable Aaron Cheriot, MP. Under B under subsection C, Roman 2. The Honorable Ben Momanyi, MP. The Honorable Aisha Jumwa, MP. Senator, the Honorable George Khaniri, MGH, MP. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? As many as of the counter opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honourable members, Honourable Kainan, the motion is carried. Member for Eldas.
Mr. Speaker,
Honourable members, the business of the House is not over.
yes, I want to. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of my colleagues, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Somebody is standing. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, we need your. Mr. Speaker, we need your guidance.
Now, honourable members, it looks like
Order number 9, motion, adoption of session of paper number 3 of 2016 on the national housing policy.
Honourable members, let's go back to business. Debate on this motion was adjourned with a balance of 1 hour 40 minutes. And the records show that one Honorable Mwangi who? From the member for Nyando.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Seemingly, the debate that we had on appointment of PSC members ought to have stolen thunder from us. And doing a quick head count, we are actually below the threshold of the number of members to transact business. So I would seek your indulgence that this is a most important and critical motion before us that should marshal the right number of members of parliament in the House. So I seek your direction, but I think we should adjourn in light of that so that we suspend this debate to another day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Be specific. You cannot just seek us the House to adjourn. So what are you?
Well, the point that I'm bringing home, Mr. Speaker, is the standing order requires that we marshal 50 members of parliament for a debate to be carried out.
Are you saying there's no quorum?
There's no quorum.
Yes,
That's basically what I'm saying.
As that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I know it's because you have not been around for some time.
Thank you.
That is enough.
Thank you, sir.
And I confirm that there is no quorum. You are 34 currently. Can you ring the division bell for the first instance, for the first 10 minutes? Whip, it will be an act of gross disorder for any member to walk out during this time that the bell is ringing. So those who are present must remain, including the member who raised the issue, so that we can only now adjourn, Honorable Okello, if we don't raise the quorum. So even you have to remain now here. Honorable members, unless you have not, none of you started at times, no? A member cannot walk out at this time.
kuwapa uwezo wa
Yeah. No. The person who keeps the account is clerk and the sergeant at arms. The numbers are there. They are the ones who do the count. You know, we don't start doing it like you do in the village. Counting 1, 2. No. There's somebody who is. You can see that paper being raised there is to show. You know, if you had been coming to the house, you would be familiar. But you know, you have been so much on the streets. When you see the sergeant at arms raise that paper, he said we have attained the number. Yes. The member for Langata, in fact, you had a balance of 7 minutes, but because the member for Nyando took a little bit of your time, I want to give you the full 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion of the adoption on the adoption of the sessional paper, number 3 of 2016. And as I indicated before, the point of order from the honorable member, housing is a right according to the Constitution, and government is mandated to provide a decent and affordable houses to its citizens. And I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, when you look back, most of the years back, the government has neglected this mandate and has left it to the private sector. And the private sector has taken advantage of this, Mr. Speaker, and housing is very expensive. Very few Kenyans can afford to live in decent houses as it is right now. Mr. Speaker, the government has shown interest in supporting the housing sector. And as a parliament, we can only provide that support by passing the legislations and giving in the necessary infrastructure in terms of legislation that the government can use to provide affordable houses and decent houses to the Kenyans. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, I represent Langata constituency. And part of my people who live in Langata constituency live in a very bad state. They live in the slum. And it is only proper, as a member of parliament, that I support this motion so that we can ensure that the government can give these Kenyans access to decent houses. Kijiji Slum for
Parliamentary Service Commission. Parliament was then a department of the Office of the President, and the clerk and other officers were appointed by His Excellency the President. members were then not facilitated. Members were not housed. They were never given offices. They were not given facilities for work until the establishment of the commission. So it's such an important commission which members need to give seriousness, and I hope those who have been nominated to serve in the commission, I trust Honorable Naomi Shaban, one of the long-serving members, who we were with here at the time of establishment of the commission. I hope they're going to do a good job. We trust that you're going to deal with the issues that affect members, that members will be facilitated adequately in order to perform their mandate of representation, oversight, and legislation. You will ensure members go back to the constituency and come back. You will ensure that you don't employ your relatives in the commission. You don't employ your husbands and children and so on and so forth, so that members are adequately served. I thought I wanted to say that as a preamble, Madam Speaker, then proceed to the issue of the sessional paper. Madam Speaker, the Constitution is very clear that every member, and particularly making reference, Madam Speaker, to Article 43 of the Constitution, which states that every person has a right to accessible and adequate housing to reasonable standards of sanitation. And further in Article 21, the state shall take legislative policy and other measures, including the setting up of standards to achieve the progressive realization of the rights guaranteed under the Constitution in Article 43. Madam Speaker, therefore, this sessional paper seeks to put in place measures to implement the provisions of the Constitution. And more particularly, Madam Speaker, it is important for members to note that if you look at the policy paper, it captures and provides the aim, which is very clear, to enable the low-income households to access housing. The honorable member for Langata, my younger brother, Nixon Korir, who represents a major slum, mentioned the problem and challenges that are experienced by our people. This is for real, Madam Speaker, that Kenyans are expected, as provided in the Constitution, to access reasonable housing. But when you go to the slums, people are living under very deplorable conditions. They live in shanties and they don't have food, they have nothing. The government is therefore made a good move. The introduction of this sessional paper is timely, and it seeks to ensure that the people of Kenya are indeed accessing what they are entitled as provided in the Constitution. This paper also, Madam Speaker, proposes the upgrading of slums. This goes towards addressing the same problem, the upgrading of slums and improvement, including income-generating activities that effectively would combat poverty of the people living in the slums. This is a very good paper, and I trust that if it is pushed through, Parliament adopts this sessional paper, and it is implemented as a policy as provided, with these objectives, it is going to help to turn around the lives of many Kenyans, Madam Speaker. Looking at it again, Madam Speaker, and the projections, the statistics provided, the growth in the population is one aspect that must be matched with the projections for housing in the country. Madam Speaker, it is projected by the statisticians that by 2030, the Kenyan population will be at about 150 million people. If this is a projection which is realistic, because those projections from 1963 at the time of independence, we were at 5 million. It moved on. Right now, we are at 50 million. Those projections are reasonable, and if we are serious about ensuring that our people, benefit, our people also grow, our people also enjoy and are able to lead a better life, we must also be able to match the growth of the population. I was looking at, this morning, Madam Speaker, I was blocked by animals, by cows along the road, along Langata Road towards town. And the many cows, have destroyed all the grass and flowers and anything that is being grown there. The planning, the people of, the city of Nairobi, the county of Nairobi, I'm sure has got some laws and regulations about grazing animals and so on. These are things that must also be taken into account when you are doing projections and planning development. Animals must also be planned. We need a specific number of animals and some place for grazing. Our brothers, those with animals that push into Nairobi, they should be given some alternative place and grow some grass for them. Government can arrange and grow some grass for them, instead of allowing them to come and eat the flowers in Uhuru Highway and causing traffic jam every morning. Madam Speaker, the point I'm trying to say is that there has to be collaboration, there has to be coordination, and the planning, even as we do this good policy, we must also look at other related issues, Madam Speaker. Now, another issue which I thought is important, specifically, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that this growth is going to be maintained. You initiate a paper and set in motion good aspects, the growth in housing. But for how long is this going to be sustained? There must also be a plan, a good plan, to ensure sustainability, to ensure that whatever you are undertaking is going to go on for posterity and will ensure that the people, not just for now, but the future also, that it is going to be continuous, that is going to be progressive, that, the aspect of resources, mobilization, the aspect of expertise, the aspect of all related aspects are looked into account so that as we move forward, our people are going to benefit from this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I can talk about many things that I see in this paper, but also I take into account the fact that some of the colleagues who are here want to speak. I want to encourage that government also works towards, and I think Parliament generally, towards ensuring that we undertake legislation that will ensure that we align ourselves to the Constitution. With those few remarks, I thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the chance.
Well, honorable members, I noticed a lot of names here of members who are not in the chamber. And I think some of you have logged in anticipation of the roads bill. So kindly, if you're not intending to contribute to the housing bill, housing policy, please take out your card so that we don't have a confusion. Honorable member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this session of Paper 3 of 2016 in regard to housing and urban development, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to start by saying that this session of paper is come on timely, and we need to assess it, and more so pray and believe that it will see the light of the day and gets implemented. But before I go to that one, Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate my fellow members of Parliament who have been just elected by unanimously elected by us to go into the Parliamentary Service Commission and challenging them to be up to the task and make sure that all the interests and the welfare of the members are put into place, more so knowing that the handships and other waterfalls we go through as members of parliament, and because they are part of the same family, they know our problems and they need to address them quickly and expeditiously. Having said that, Madam Speaker, housing is the most important aspect of human life. We talk of health, we talk of food, and then we come to housing. And at the end of the day, without a shelter, then we might be living in the Stone Age where people are living in the bush, like the Stone Age people. But in the current world, it is up to the government to see to it that its citizens are housed, the rich and the poor, the educated and uneducated, and without any discrimination, Madam Speaker. Therefore, it is prudent that we adopt this session of paper which encompasses and incorporates the planning of housing in our republic and also set standards which need to be, there should be all the considerations. Sanitation should be properly addressed, and more so, even accessibility. And Speaker, we have had incidents where fires have broken out, and the fire engines cannot access the place where the buildings are because of the poor planning which has been done. We need proper planning whereby if we need to access house A, we will be as easy as accessing house Z or any other estate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need to have, we are talking of diseases which are coming up every time. If a disease comes up, a cholera outbreak breaks in Runda, maybe it will affect a family or a few individuals. But if there's a cholera outbreak in Ikorogocho or in Madare, it will sweep the whole entire slum, Madam Speaker. Therefore, these are the things which need to be addressed by this session of paper, and it has put into place those ones, and it is now the task of the government to implement the same. Madam Speaker, affordability of houses. Despite that you are talking of everybody getting an house, let's get a good, clean house, and with all the amenities, but also affordable. And these things are there, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have got people who have been employed in this city and in many other cities, and they cannot afford to get accommodation because of the high costs of living, because of the salaries. Madam Speaker, I happened to go to Singapore, and I found that every institution which employs these people, they have their houses next to the institution. If it is parliament, the parliamentarians are housed in an estate somewhere where they can even walk to parliament, and that one is catered for by the government. There are those people who are employed in industries, EP-send areas. We will find that people scramble to go and look for accommodation, Madam Speaker. But if that particular industry invests in putting up houses for its employees, it will be cheaper and it will be convenient, and the employees can always walk to their place of work, Madam Speaker. And this one is already catered for in this session paper, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we will get rid of houses which are put up by poor architects, poor structures, which are collapsing in estates, killing people, causing mayhem. We need proper houses which are properly constructed with the correct workmanship, so that at least also we can stop all these accidents by collapsing on buildings. All this is said and done, Madam Speaker. We need to put the finances and also a program to continue to put up these buildings. And as far as the government is concerned, it should be budgeted periodically so that it can be always in the budget, and every year we are putting houses so that if we start, the process continues, it continues here and here. And at the end of the day, we shall have even to go to the rural areas, Madam Speaker. Let us not congest the buildings or these houses in our cities, in our towns or urban areas. Let us go into the rural areas. Let us put electricity in the rural areas, put up houses there, and then we shall develop even the countryside, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other day we passed the other session paper 3/2017, concerning climatic financing. And I spoke to the same and said, let it not go under the, let it not be water under the bridge. Let it not be put under the carpet. Once we pass these documents, Madam Speaker, it should go to the right ministry for the proper budgeting, for the proper planning, especially with the Minister of Housing, so that at least it will see the light of the day. Because we can adopt all these papers, Madam Speaker, we keep them in the table office, we keep them in the offices, but if they are not put into practice with the real arm of the government, the ministry concerned, to see to it that this is one is done, Madam Speaker, we shall be doing an effort in futility, and I don't think that is the spirit. The spirit is to actualize what we pass here. And I strongly believe that the Minister of Housing will take into consideration this one seriously and move forward and put all what is here into place and practically. And once it sees the light of the day, we shall say that we did a good job and it has been appreciated by the citizens of this country. With those few remarks, I support it, and I thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the same. Thank you.
Member for Alego Usonga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ventilate on this very important policy motion. And Madam Speaker, I want to say that any serious policy on housing must address the question of housing financing. Because, Madam Speaker, if you look at those countries that have been able to address the question of housing, countries in the Eastern Tigers, countries in Europe such as Canada and Australia, those countries have vibrant financial sector. Because financing of housing is not only a preserve for government, but it is also something that the private sector, through the financial system, has also been incorporated. And Madam Speaker, I speak as an expert and a professional, a top professional in the financial sector before I came to this house. And Madam Speaker, I wanted to say that in our present Kenya, we have not been able to succeed in this area because our financial system is not that vibrant, that is capable of answering this question. And today, Madam Speaker, you know that if you were to go into the bank, our banks to take a mortgage, it is very, very expensive. And the reason why it is expensive is because our legislations, previous legislations in this House on the financial sector have mostly been geared towards disrupting or what I call trying to undermine the investors in that sector. And so the monies that you receive from banks to finance mortgage are very expensive because banks rely on short-term deposits from customers, which are very, very expensive. So you'll find that the investors in the housing sector have to sell their houses very, very exorbitantly, and you know most Kenyans cannot afford. Even in this house, Madam Speaker, you know very well that a lot of Kenyans, a lot of MPs in this house are unable to use our mortgage system to finance houses in upmarket areas such as Karen. And just to take you back, when the majority leader was making his statements on the motion of the nomination of PSC, I think this, he refused to, he made a reference to the experts in this sector. And if the PSC commissioners are here, I want them to note that I am a very important resource in that area, that I'm willing to donate my knowledge so that in this parliament we have members really accessing those mortgage facilities with better information. But Madam Speaker, just coming back to this issue, how do we as a country get to able to support government in the area of housing? And this is something that I believe the policy drafters of this document need to look at. One, we have an option for what we call housing development bonds in this country, which are ideally affordable, which any investor or in the financial sector could take advantage of to be able to bridge the gap that will be left from the government funding, budgetary funding. But the other issue the issue in the area of housing development bonds is the fact that presently we tax the housing development bond. So it is also very expensive. So one avenue that really would help this economy to spur the development of housing. So I think as a recommendation, one of the things that this house must do is to try to make the financial sector as vibrant as possible so that it is able to support government initiatives. And Madam Speaker, you know that the government budgetary allocation for housing has continued to dwindle in the recent past, over the years. And again, this is not by design, Madam Speaker, because our revenue generation projections have not been, we have not been able to meet them. So the government does not have sufficient resources to be able to fund the development of housing. So my proposal, Madam Speaker, is that as a House, we must be able to think far and wide and bring in proposals that will be capable of making our financial sector vibrant and therefore capable of supporting the government initiatives towards the development of housing sector. And Madam Speaker, I've noted that this policy has been well crafted, except in the area of financing, which it has paid lip service, and which I think is the most critical and the most important. The other issue, Madam Speaker, that I wanted to raise is as far as how do we impact as a House, how do we support our financial sector to do this? And one of the proposals I would like to make, because in the last Parliament, this House attempted to make certain proposals to tame the financial sector, to tame banks, I think to discourage investors in those sectors. I think, in my view, we need to relook at those legislations so that we can address how we can fund the financial sector, how we can fund our banks with cheap money, so that this cheap money can again benefit the other sectors of the economy, including housing. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support this policy document.
Member for Fafi, Mohammed Osman, still suffering from the same fate. Honorable Commissioner Namsi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I'd want to take this opportunity to thank the membership of this August House for giving us an opportunity to decide. Of course, it awaits the Parliamentary Service Commission motion, awaits the decision also of the Senate, but I am sure we are going to serve. And I want to thank all the members, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. This has been a long, protracted battle, but we are finally here, and we should be able to serve the people. And I give my promise that we will work and make sure that the welfare of members shall be improved so that we can all be able to serve our people in a more, in a better and more relaxed manner because of the issues that we've been facing over the years. Now, Madam Speaker, this sessional paper number 3 of 2016 is such an important paper. More so, I do believe this should have come earlier because our housing sector, and in fact, our housing facilities in this country have been a big mess. Madam Speaker, this falls amongst the big 4 agendas of the Jubilee government, and where affordable housing has taken a center stage. And it is very important for our Kenyans and our wananchi to be given a place where they can have shelter. Madam Speaker, our Constitution states it very clearly in Article 43 that housing is a right in the Bill of Rights, and affordable housing is what is encouraged. And Madam Speaker, I do believe this policy will take us a long way in making sure that we realize what was put in our Bill of Rights. Madam Speaker, it is important for us to point out that you cannot have a complete housing policy without referring to land issues. Land issues are a major problem in this country. Acquiring land has been a nightmare, and quite a bit of land which was given out erroneously, I would say, and illegally to some people. Getting it back, it means the government having to spend a lot of money in terms of compensation so that that land can be utilized for purposes of carrying out some of these projects which are going to be beneficial to Kenyans. Madam Speaker, our environment has been a mess. Just the other day, we were also discussing a climate finance sessional paper, and it has been a mess, and something the government has looked at it very seriously. Now it has a policy on that, and we need to look at it broadly so that we can be able to encompass that housing alone cannot be a standalone issue without looking at all the other issues. And I'm looking at this policy because I can see all those issues have been raised here. They've talked about the environmental issues, they have talked about the land issue, they've talked about the importance of how far this policy has come from, and even how we are going to move on from now onwards so that we can be able to have affordable housing. It has talked about, also it has referred to the urban migration, which has been a pain and a very serious problem that we've been facing in this country, that everybody is running away from the rural areas and coming to the big cities and the big towns where they're coming to look for their basic livelihoods, to get employment because of their unemployment issues. And therefore, this housing policy is quite comprehensive in the sense that it also addresses the policy issues and how the government intends to tackle some of those issues, and more so the urbanization and also the issues of unemployment which are affecting our people, so that they have to come to the big towns, to the urban areas, to be able to fend for themselves. Madam Speaker, the four agendas, the big four agendas that the government, the Jubilee government is looking at are very important because they are all related. They are all related. And this housing policy will go a long way, not only to give us that affordable housing, but also in housing, you know, we have issues of health. When people are not well housed, they don't have proper shelter, they don't have clean shelter, they don't have a clean environment, then certainly health issues also kick in. So all that is actually put together. And when you look at it also, the food security issue has got something to do with where we can put our houses. Because in the rural areas, most of our people do stay where we do our farming. And it is important that all these issues are put together so that the Jubilee government can be able to give our people what is in the robust Bill of Rights. Madam Speaker, having said that so much, and I'm asking our colleagues, all of them to actually look at this policy and read through it, because most of those issues have been tackled here, and I know that the government is keen on making sure that these issues are going to be carried out, and more so because in implementing our constitution, we cannot say we have implemented the constitution if we do not seriously looking at affordable housing, and that's why President Uhuru Kenyatta decided to make it a centerpiece in our development agenda for his second and final term. Madam Speaker, there are issues concerning the other infrastructure which goes with this, with housing. You cannot have proper housing if you do not have roads. You cannot have proper housing if you cannot have water, clean water. All those things, and sewage, all those things need to go together so that we can have proper sanitation and also have our people being housed where they can be sure that there is a health preservation in their families, because most of the families would suffer because of not getting proper housing, clean water, clean drinking water, getting proper sewerage system and sanitation facilities. And Madam Speaker, this document is very, very comprehensive. And Madam Speaker, I beg to support.
Honorable Member for Nyando, are you on an intervention?
Oh, well, then that is a testament and a manifestation that the country is heading towards being put under the first world economy. And those are the things that I think, even as we begin to do census next year, national census, that we are going to come up with real figures as to how many people are homeless. And therefore, this kind of intervention will straight away go to those who are most needy across the Republic, across Kenya. That is also another way of looking at Vision 2030 and its attainment, because this country did set very clear goals that must be achieved and attained within a possible space of time. And 2030 has been set as the barometer upon which our industrialization and decent living and job creation and all those good things that come with it shall be pegged on. We need to also carrying out this research on why most Kenyans do not enjoy good living standards. Is it because of the traditions, perhaps, that we have had for a long period of time that may have to be amended by various communities? Is it because, our people consider urban centers or urban setups to be the best place to live in and discard their rural setups? So these are things that, the parliament, together with all the laws that will be amended, must put a very serious commission to seriously address these most fundamental issues about housing. And therefore, the sessional paper before us is a very good one. We need to universally support it for the welfare of the country and welfare of those who are destitute within the Republic of Kenya. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I support this motion. Thank you.
Member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you. I also note now you have noticed where I'm seated, since you had earlier referred to the Honorable Nixon Korir, member for Langata, as member for Kikuyu in my name.
Apologies, Honorable Member. And I think the Hansard will correct that. It wasn't you.
Yes. It was the Honorable Nixon Korir, member for Langata in Nairobi County. Well, I am from Kikuyu in Kiambu County. But we are related in the sense that both Langata and Kiambu counties, or rather Nairobi and Kiambu counties, are one of those counties. And Madam Speaker, I rise first to support this session of paper, this motion for the adoption of this session of paper. And I was saying Kiambu and Nairobi counties are those two counties because of our proximity to the capital city of Nairobi. And that's why I relate very much to the sentiments of the Honorable Nixon Korir on the need for a proper housing policy in this country, and one that will enable government to fast-track the provision of not just housing, but what has now been called affordable housing. I'm told that is a politically correct term, not low-cost housing, because there's nothing low-cost in it. It's just affordable for those who could not afford the high prices of housing currently in Nairobi and environs. And I was saying Nairobi and Kiambu share very close similarities, and the fact that we neighbor Nairobi, we are a hub to accommodate very many people who are working in this city. And therefore, I'm very excited, Madam Speaker, by the prospects that will come with this session of paper. And I must commend the Ministry and the Department of Housing and Urban Planning in coming up with this session of paper, because it addresses a number of issues that basically have made housing unaffordable in this country. Principally, the question of land, Madam Speaker, that many Kenyans today are not able to afford home, not just in Nairobi and the environs, even in our rural areas, because of the cost of land. And the cost of land is so high because, not because there are services that have been provided on that land. Case in point is land in Kajiado. If you go to the regions of Kitengela, and now it's gone all the way to Isinya, the sides of Pipeline, Kiserian, and other outlying areas. Even in my own constituency, in a ward that neighbors Kajiado County called Nach Ward, I have seen adverts, and Madam Speaker, you'll be shocked. I see very many adverts, and in quotes, Madam Speaker, I see those adverts on TV, and they advertise saying, Bloti Maguta Maguta. That, to translate that from Latin, Madam Speaker, it means that they are selling plots that are very oily. And Madam Speaker, the oil in the plots is in how liquid they make you once you buy these plots. And a lot of Kenyans are being duped to buy land that is unserviced, land that is largely inaccessible, land that you cannot farm, that you cannot even inhabit since it is not serviced at all. And this session of paper, Madam Speaker, talks to that aspect of government now being able, even government using its own resources to service land, make sure there is sewer, make sure there are roads, that land is accessible, make sure there is electricity, there is water, and therefore encourage private developers now to come and develop housing that will be affordable to many Kenyans who are working in this city and other areas of urban areas, but cannot afford housing in our cities. And therefore they get duped to go and buy those Bloti Maguta Maguta in areas that are not accessible, and it ties up a lot of capital because Kenyans are working hard to save, to invest in property because they have a desire to own a home for their families. But they end up buying plots in areas that they will not be able to build in the near future. And therefore, it's all tied up capital, and it's idle capital. And therefore, this is not just about housing, Madam Speaker. It is also speaking to the culture that Kenyans have, a very good culture that Kenyans have, unlike many other people in Africa. The Kenyans, you must give them credit, they have a very good saving culture. The growth of the sacco industry, the sacco sector in this country speaks volumes of our saving culture. This session of paper is also speaking, and Madam Speaker, I had opportunity and saw me consulting with the chair of the Transport, Infrastructure and Housing Committee. I had opportunity yesterday to attend.
A number of people own houses in this country. And that is why our president then came with that very good program that he wants, and through us as Jubilee, that he wants to build 500,000 houses for the people of Kenya, Madam Speaker. That is in the right direction. That is in the right mood to respect that people of Kenya need to own houses. And that is why this session of paper, Madam Speaker, is coming at the right time when this is supposed to be implemented, Madam Speaker. And I'm happy, I've been hearing honorable members from both sides of the House that are supporting this policy, Madam Speaker. This is something good for the country. This is a bipartisan. Everybody needs a house. And that's why, Madam Speaker, I'm grateful as chair to be able to support this. Madam Speaker, the problem, and that is why this session of paper is coming, the problem that we are experiencing as leadership, the problem that we are experiencing as government, and as leaders that want to provide these houses to the people of Kenya, Madam Speaker, is that there is a mismatch between our incomes and the prices and the cost of the housing, Madam Speaker. That is why most then Kenyans end up looking and admiring people's houses. Most Kenyans move around and wish that they could own such a house, Madam Speaker. Most Kenyans then see those houses through a picture, Madam Speaker, some good houses through a picture. And that is why, and then the bill is trying to say, or the session of paper, which is setting policy direction, Madam Speaker, is trying to then to argue and say, look, for us as a country to provide that facility to the people of Kenya, then we need to look at the prices. We need to look at where will people get this money. And Madam Speaker, if you look at our ambitious program within our department of housing, that is building 500,000 houses for the people of Kenya, we have been grappling, and the minister has been grappling with how will we then get people buying these houses. Because one side will be to build, that is a supply, but the demand side, Madam Speaker, is to acquire the houses so that we don't build the houses for nobody. And that is why this policy paper is so timely, Madam Speaker. I'm trying to answer the following question, which is that we need to think out of the box. Or, Madam Speaker, say, think without the box. And say, look, how will people access mortgage, Madam Speaker? Cheap money, cheap mortgage to be able to buy the houses. And I'm happy that honorable members are supporting. Because all of us here, Madam Speaker, we are beneficiary, Kenyans of classes or leadership, Madam Speaker, so that we reduce even the competition of people wanting to become an MP, you know, so that if Kenyans can then access, you know, this cheap mortgage and own a house, then we reduce this competition that everybody wants your seat or my seat, Madam Speaker, and then we can continue being here for a while, and then to legislate and also provide them these houses, Madam Speaker. That is why then in this session of paper, we are proposing a cheap mortgage, Madam Speaker, for our people. This is the time when honorable members have, for the first time in history, have thought about the poor people down there in the village, and also the government, Madam Speaker. And that's why we are proposing, so that we are able to then achieve building, not only building the 500,000 houses and to 1 million, Madam Speaker, but even also to achieve people buying those houses, Madam Speaker. However, Madam Speaker, I want to address something which is related to housing, which calls on leadership. For us in infrastructure department, Madam Speaker, there will be a problem of land, and particularly on compensation. And we have seen this, Madam Speaker, from when you want to build a road or when you want to build a dam in this country. What happens, Madam Speaker, quickly? Some people, when they hear that a road is passing here, or SGR, railway is passing here, and now that we are introducing houses, some people might hear that now government wants to build house in certain location. And then they rush and buy land, Madam Speaker, there, cheaply. And then wait a while until when the government comes to buy the land. And then they put the prices so high, Madam Speaker, that even compensation and acquisition of land, Madam Speaker, becomes more expensive than even building the houses themselves, or even making that project a reality, Madam Speaker. It has happened that land compensation has become more expensive than even building the project. Then we have to ask ourselves as a country and as a people, where are we going? Whose project are we bringing to your people? It is for the benefit of those people. So if it is a benefit of us, why then, Madam Speaker, we need to ask ourselves, our leadership and as a people, why do we then make the prices go high for compensation, so that it defeats the purpose of then even developing that project? And that is why it is critical, and I'm happy that the land index bill is coming to Parliament, so that we are able to discuss and maintain, so that we avoid this, you know, people with small money, or people, middle class, particularly middle class, Madam Speaker, who have money, they rush to buy land and then block government from implementing these projects. And that is why we are very concerned, particularly in the infrastructure department, and now building these houses, Madam Speaker. We might have a very good thinking that we need 500,000 houses for the people of Kenya. Then some people make it difficult for us to acquire land to build these houses. And that is why I'm appealing, even the people of Kenya who are listening us today, that let us own our country. This country is not for leadership. Or for example, now it's not for Jubilee. It is for everybody. So that we don't rush, Madam Speaker, acquiring land, and then you want to sell very expensive to the government. And that's why I wish this land index comes quickly, so that it goes together with what we are proposing in the Transport, Public Works, and Housing Department, Madam Speaker. This is the direction we want to move as a country, so that we are sure that everybody then at least have a home to stay. And Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I want these honorable members to agree with us and pass this session of paper, so that then we move to implement and create the institutions which we have proposed in the session of paper, Madam Speaker. And with those very many remarks, I thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I urge members to pass this session of paper. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I think, Honorable Kosing, that the task will be squarely on your committee to follow this through for implementation, which by all means is very, very critical. The member from Funyula, Honorable Ojambo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the adoption of the motion or the housing policy. And probably as I do so, let me also take this opportunity to congratulate my colleagues who have been appointed to the to Parliamentary Service Commission. I wish them well, and I wish they'll take care of us as well. Also, I wish also to take exception to the remarks by the Honorable MP for Kikuyu, Probably I must say I sympathize with him. He went to a school. Some of us went to an educational center, Starehe Boys Center and School, and we are extremely proud about it. Now, Madam Speaker, I speak again on this motion, having been a person of having an interest in the matter, having been in this sector, in this field as a practitioner and as a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. And I must say, I must commend the State Department of Housing and Urban Development for having taken time to align the 2004 housing policy to the new constitutional dispensation. Also having the opportunity to review the housing policy of 2004 in order to align it to the realities of the modern day. I remember for many years, we depended in the sessional paper, number 5 of 1966-1967, to grapple or fix the housing problem. The housing strategy paper of the year 2000, couldn't help us solve the housing problem. I must mention, Madam Speaker, that housing is a basic human rights, and I appreciate the Constitution of Kenya, and Article, I think, 43 or 45, has made housing as one of the social and economic rights. Madam Speaker, the issue of housing or inaffordable or inadequate housing in this country, it's not a housing problem per se. It's a complex problem that requires a multi-sectoral approach to address this problem. And I appreciate that over the years, we have passed so many policies that together ought to solve the housing problem in this country. The land policy, the urban development policy, the land use policy, and various policies related to the housing sector or the built environment will go a long way to solve this problem. Madam Speaker, probably at the top of the problem in this country lies in two diverse but somehow interconnected issues. Let me put them three. And this has been captured in the definition of housing in the policy. Number one is the issue of infrastructure. A house is as good as the infrastructure provided to that housing. And that's why you find the United Nations or Habitat, UN Habitat, has been very categorical and clear in the definition of housing. Is therefore, when we talk about expensive housing or unaffordable housing, in a way, we are looking at the cost of producing that housing unit, the cost of maintaining that housing unit, and the element of housing finance. I therefore urge those in charge of the housing docket to really partner with the county governments to ensure that the necessary infrastructure is provided to enable urban dwellers access decent housing at an affordable price. The second issue that we need to look at is the issue of affordability, the demand side of the equation. And this demand side of the equation, Madam Speaker, arises from two perspectives. One, per capita income or the general income. Number two is the issue of the cost of accessing housing finance. My colleague, the Honorable MP for Lagos Songa, has alluded to the fact that we have a problem in this country, that the amount of finance devoted to housing has been low compared to other economies of equal size. And this has arisen because the high appetite the government of the day has had for domestic sources of finance. Surely, the government cannot be seen and cannot really compete with its own people. It will always outcompete its people because it has got the muscles, it's a sovereign, and the risk of lending to the government.
County governments, and out of our experience, if this money is not well checked, actually anything can happen. So I think the request by the Kenya Roads Board to be in charge of the funds I think that is something also which should be taken in a very positive way. Mr. Speaker, sir, another issue which this bill has actually pointed out, and I feel it's of utmost importance, is the general powers of an authority. This whereby the power they're asking for is they have the power to acquire land for the purpose of that particular authority, power to enter land, survey, power to power to enter land to prevent accidents and so forth. I think a good example as far as this issue of acquisition of land is concerned, a good example, Mr. Speaker, which I must point out here, if we look at what happened as when we were doing the first phase of the gauge railway, we have these characters actually who are going ahead. They knew the roadmap of the railway. Characters will go, acquire some land, and then sell it to the government at exorbitant prices. And not even that. We have some of these areas whereby we've had a number of accidents, like Salga issue, and also if you look at somewhere like Naivasha, where we have the toll station, whereby we'll be having this traffic snarl. This is one area whereby this bill has tried to look into that, because, for instance, what was happening at the Gilgil, where we have the toll station, right now I can see the ministry is trying to actually have another access or rather another different train to take care of the traffic. But you can imagine a situation whereby if they wanted to acquire that piece of land, that we didn't have a legal backing, whereby if the government feels this is a necessity and for public good, this actually is one area which should just come automatic. And I think this is one area also the bill has tried to take into consideration. If you look at part 3 of the bill, we have, or rather it has been recommended that the CS may review from time to time the classification of national trunk and county roads. That means the powers have been conferred to him to review time to time. So this is a very important aspect, because in the final analysis, we would want the CS, the cabinet secretary in charge of the infrastructure, actually to be in charge. And I think if those powers are conferred to him, basically some of the issues which can come up, that will be well taken care of. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you look at that issue of classification and assignment of public roads, we would want a situation whereby to ensure that the classification is accurately, or rather accurately reflects the function of the function served by the road, and all parts of the country have reasonable access to national trunk road or county road. Another issue, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to touch as far as this bill is concerned is the establishment of the public road.
And we sat on this bill, and we find it's a good bill moving forward. Mr. Speaker, in this bill, we intend to retain the roads authorities as they are. That is Kura, Kena, and Kera, but we change Kera to Kenya National Secondary Roads instead of calling it rural roads, so that that ambiguity of rural is not there. We are clear on what is not urban and what is not highway is a secondary road, and that is what this bill intends to do. Mr. Speaker, we also looked at the composition of the boards of all those authorities, and we realized that some of the members of those boards are elites who are not the major road users, and we therefore suggested that we accommodate the Matatu Owners Association as members of the board and Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and remove the Law Society of Kenya and accountants and through the minister's gazettement, the classifications of roads must be very clear on what is a county road and what is a national government road. For example, in my constituency, Mwingi Central constituency, where I come from, where I represent, I realize I only have 6 roads which are national roads. The rest of the roads, which are majority of them, over 90% are county roads. And the county governments do not have enough resources to maintain these roads. So you find that most of the roads are not properly maintained. Whereas the ones done by the county government are actually being done to even maram level. Whereas the ones done by the county government are only graded. Nothing much happens. So this bill should actually address that matter to ensure that there is a balance of resources to ensure all the roads in the rural areas are properly maintained. Mr. Speaker, in terms of resource allocation, we have tried to increase the allocation of resources for the secondary roads, which were initially rural roads, from the initial 22% to 30%, so that the rural roads can be properly and well maintained. In the presentation of KERA in this committee, they indicated that they have so far developed 5,000 kilometers of road since the Jubilee administration came into power, which was actually contrary to what the majority leader was saying, that the Jubilee administration has done 9,000. Maybe the 9,000 is what is in progress, but what they presented as done is 5,000. Mr. Speaker, this bill, if enacted, will therefore assist the Jubilee administration to realize its dream of even building more kilometers, because I see that energy of trying to develop infrastructure. This bill will actually energize that and give them the stamina and the catalyst to do that. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support. Thank you.
The Honorable Mulungi. I will give this opportunity to the Honorable Ras Wali, a member for SACU.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I actually thought that I was not going to get this time, but thank you. You are gracious. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important bill, and I am glad the chairman of Roads just walked in. As we discuss these bills, it is important the chair, the vice chair, or a member of that committee to be in the House, so that if there are observations that we raise, then at least somebody is able to take the notes. Mr. Speaker, when we build these roads, we build it for our people to get access for their produce, to get access to get to the different destinations. Secondly, I think these roads are built for safety. It is important that safety must be addressed as a cornerstone of any road, whether it is Kera, Kura, Kena, or even those secondary roads. Thirdly, it is about land. These roads are built on land, either belonging to the people or fallow land that had already been surveyed, that a road at some time in the future will pass on this land. I think when we look at this bill, there are many things that come to mind. Of the observation that I want to raise on this bill, it is the aspect of coordination between Kena, Kura, Kera. In this bill, I want to see what is the coordination how are these different authorities coordinating? Mr. Speaker, the other issue is on the membership of the different boards. While they have clearly pointed out who are the members or the suggested membership, we must have members of the National Security or the Ministry of Interior, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, because they'll be representing transporters, they'll be representing matatu owners, people who use the road in a big way. Finally, on membership, we really want to see the National Land Commission as membership of these boards, because there are places where the roads are going to pass. And when it comes to acquisition of those land, and the National Land Commission is not involved, then of course it's going to cause some issues. Mr. Speaker, clearly there are two areas I want to observe again on the county roads. What to take care of? Finally, it is in the area of term limit for the Director General. In this bill, the Director General has clearly been given a free or sort of an open-end time that a Director General maybe can serve for 10 years or even more. I think it is an important post that we must cap the time for that individual. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to support this bill. Thank you.
Very well. We shall now have the Honorable Koskei, Koech member for Sotik.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity that you've given me to contribute to this bill. Mr. Speaker, I'm a member of the Committee on Transport. And therefore, I thank the members for having burned the midnight oil to come come up with this bill and its amendments. Mr. Speaker, you would know that the roads sector play a vital role in the economic development of any country. And therefore, when we are talking about development, you can't avoid to mention the roads sector. Mr. Speaker, the Roads Bill 2017 therefore creates a platform for the economic growth, the spur of economic growth in this country. I would wish to notify, therefore, this House of some of the major points to note in the bill. We're seeing in the road sector in the country, most of the time, the county governments go ahead and build roads. We've been told of bigger issues where roads are built in 2 or 3 months at maximum. Thereafter, in the next 6 months, we don't have a road in the place. We've had those issues of wasteful of resources. Therefore, this bill gives authority, or it gives this country an opportunity for a roads standards board to be created, where we now have all the standards of the road sector being implemented in one direction. Chair, Mr. Speaker, I also want to note and put this House to notify the classification of roads which is in this bill. We've had several arguments, be it with the county government and the national government on the classification of roads. Now I think this bill will put into rest those arguments. And now we will have the standards classification of roads in the country, and I don't think we will have arguments again. We also have, Mr. Speaker, the creation on part 4 of the bill of the authorities to implement the road sector in the country. The bill proposes, and I seek the indulgence of this House that we all adopt the bill, the creation and maintenance of the same authorities, even though there will be changes in names here and there. But we are maintaining all the authorities in place. Kenya, we are changing Kera now to read the Kenya National Secondary Roads Authority, and also Kura, which is the Kenya National Urban Roads Authority. It is also a point to note, Mr. Speaker, that now the county governments will be forced to create agencies to deal with roads in the county. We expect the agencies to be a bit autonomous, and we hope that now the road sector, even in the county governments, will be better than the way it is now. I am sure of several cases, Mr. Speaker. We've had incidences, we've had public participation with all the stakeholders, and we understand how the county governments have been very wasteful of the resources and not being able to do roads in a proper manner. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to point that on the composition of the board in the bill of the various authorities, the national authorities being created, we've given the leeway for creation of positions to represent the people of this country. Over most of the time, when you look at the previous bill, where we had a kind of, more or less the same board for Kenya, for Kera, and for Kura. Now we are saying that the board needs to be a representative of the people of Kenya, and therefore we are giving authority to the CS to nominate some members based on the regional balance who will represent this country well. Majorly the farmers and even the Matatu Owners Association will be represented in the board. Mr. Speaker, you remember even the chairman of the boards running these institutions, running these authorities. Now the CS maybe will now have authority to appoint. And Mr. Speaker, we've planned the midnight oil to come up with this bill, and I therefore seek all members to adopt the bill.
Actually, the work done by the Kenya National Highway Authority, maintenance of the road. And I would like to cite Thika Road as part of my observation, Mr. Speaker, where we have a very great road, but the maintenance, sometimes when it rains, it has to flood. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's the right time and the high time that there is proper communication and consultation on how, as we invest a lot of our monies on the road, how we are going, Mr. Speaker, also to maintain the roads. We have very good roads, but sometimes when they are not well maintained, when the drainage is not well done, or just general working of this road, Mr. Speaker, they are source and causes of many accidents. I'm excited